And I just want to thank everyone so much for tuning. Fossil fuels are a big problem when it comes to global warming. And did you hear, Dr. Seneff, about how this giant glacier in Greenland now has a crack through the center of it?
I did. I heard that on the news here just a few minutes ago.
Oh, just a
Amazing,
few
huh?
minutes ago. It's
What
funny, I
there
should
was.
say that. Yeah, I actually put that on Twitter, and there's a Greenland group that they liked my tweet because I mentioned that. Because I mean, what do you think when you hear that?
Me, I mean, I'm very concerned about global climate change. That's right up there with the poison that's going on with glyphosate. And in fact, I think glyphosate is a major contributor to the problem. It's an underappreciated component of the issue because it destroys the soil bacteria that normally would fixate carbon and nitrogen into the soil. So more of the carbon and nitrogen escape as greenhouse gases because of the inefficiency of the soil bacteria. So I think glyphosate's a major contributor. Exactly what percentage, I don't know, but I suspect a lot more than what they're thinking.
Well, the Rodale Institute that has done extensive research, like something like over 30 years of research, agree with you. And they say that is a big part of the problem. There's special fungi that absorbs carbon from the air and locks it into the soil, that 90% of it we've destroyed. And
Yeah,
we know that glyphosate is a great killer, so I'm no doubt that it's been a big part of it. But also that organic farming is one of the fastest, biggest solutions that we could possibly have because of the amount of
yes,
credits of oil that we've already said we're going to use. 10, 20 years from now, we're still going to be using massive amounts of oil. So what
right.
can we do today, right now? And that is to start supporting organic farmers transitioning to organic, because that's a tough thing to do. But we've had some really great guests with some solutions for that. But
That is so important. And in fact, organic farming not only arrests global warming, but it can actually reverse it, which is so important because it can bring the nitrogen and carbon back into the soil and reverse global warming.
yes, and like just think about that for a minute. When we think about bringing it from the air into the soil, that means that we don't have to add all of these extra fertilizers that cost farmers a lot of money.
Right,
And
exactly. They have to use so many more nitrates and phosphates because of the inefficiencies of the microbes that usually would fixate the nitrogen, at the roots. It's not working properly, so they have to add more, and that's why they get these nitrates getting released. The nitrous oxide is over 100 times more effective as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide.
really, 100
Yes.
times. Wow. So we're just accelerating by like exponentially with what we're doing here with this type of farming where we're dependent. We pretty much become dependent on glyphosate, haven't we, Dr. Seneff?
It's so crazy. I mean, it's really ironic that we are, so convinced that we have to use these toxic chemicals on our food in order to feed the world, and that is simply not true. That's a myth. And certainly, for most of the history of mankind, we've been able to eat without having to use toxic chemicals. This whole concept of poisoning the weeds is really very, very new in human history. And we're in a giant experiment right now. I predict that sometime soon in the future, they're going to recognize that this method is simply not feasible. And there's so much bad about it that they're going to basically give up on it completely and go completely back to organic. I'm hoping that's true. We see a lot of farms failing now because the weeds outsmart the glyphosate. You poison the weed. When you poison the weed through several generations, it can evolve itself to resist the glyphosate. And this is why they've had to use more and more every year. Glyphosate usage has gone up exponentially over the past 2 decades, in step with the exponential growth in a long list of debilitating diseases. And I think it's a direct hit. I think it's a direct cause and effect relationship.